Hi again guys, and welcome to another look back into the past of the Forza franchise, to Forza Motorsport 4, to another one of my favourite cars in the game. Not an obvious choice of favourite, but for those of us who like this kind of era of motoring, American motoring, then it's a standout for sure. And as I already said, the Cadillac Biarritz from '59, which is arguably this car's closest rival in the game, is one of my dream cars. This one is also one of my dream cars, but I have to admit I would choose the Cadillac over this one. However, that doesn't diminish the fact that I have a whole lot of love for this car, and it has a whole lot on offer. For a start, for instance, it's a lot cheaper than the Cadillac, and it has a bigger engine. This is only a 55,000 credit car, which is actually pretty good for any American classic, really. It's got a 7-litre engine, naturally aspirated, not too surprisingly, it's a luxury car after all, 300 horsepower, a much more impressive 465 pound-feet of torque, but of course, it's huge, it's a luxury car, and it's heavy. It weighs 2.2 metric tons, that's 2,236 kilos, which, to put it into perspective, is actually still lighter than a Bentley Continental GT, which I'd say this is a way nicer car than that, and I'm sure there are people who would disagree. The horsepower per ton takes a pretty hefty hit because of how heavy it is. It's only 134, but I mean, it's not a performance car at the end of the day. The power that's there is the same kind of power that you'd expect from a Biarritz or a Rolls-Royce or a classic Bentley. They're not designed to be fast, they're just designed to have power that can get you where you need to go effortlessly, hence massive torque. Now, in its stock form, the car's nothing to write home about in terms of performance. It's an E-Class vehicle, which might surprise some people. You'd probably expect it to be even lower, but no, E214Pi. And I think that's a pretty good place for it to be, because in terms of how competitive they are and the potential that they have for tuning and for winning races, the Lincoln definitely has a lot more use than the Cadillac Biarritz. As much as I love the Cadillac, and I really do adore that car, it feels very cumbersome, no matter what you do to it. With this car, that issue is of course still there stock, but when you tune it, you can actually make it considerably better, to the point where you can use this as a pretty good drift car. It's one of the quickest cars in the game in reverse. It's something like 135 miles per hour backwards, somewhere in that region. And it's a car which has easily better handling than the Cadillac. It's already less wallowy, the centre of gravity feels much lower, it feels more planted through corners, much less like a land yacht, and more like kind of a really big luxury muscle car. And of course it tends to get lumped into the muscle car category, even though that's technically not true. It's a luxury car, not a muscle car, in the similar way to the Cadillac. In terms of real-world appeal, well, as I said, this is one of my dream cars. You can sometimes catch one of these for sale, even here in the UK, for surprisingly good prices. I saw one not that long ago, I think it was about a year or less, for £10,000 here in the UK. And that wasn't a bid, that was just ready to go price, and it was in mint condition. A red one with a white roof. Not the kind of spec that I would have chosen, looks like a fire engine, but still a great price for a great car. The practicality levels are fantastic. You've got tons, I mean acres of trunk space. The car itself is very large, which appeals to me. There's plenty of space inside, which appeals to me, and it's a very comfortable, well-furnished, well-equipped car. You've got electric windows, I believe it has aircon as well, which of course the Cadillac had even earlier in '59, whereas this car's from 1962. And even though I love this car, this is actually pretty much the only Continental that I do love. All of the others before and after I don't like anywhere near as much, because for me this one just has the cleanest, classiest looking style. It's very simple looking, very executive in nature, and of course Kennedy was in one. It's a presidential car, very literally so. And also it's not quite as garish as the Cadillac. Again, I love it, but I can see why some people would take offence at the way the Cadillac looks. It's certainly very over the top. It's very Hollywood looking, whereas this one, not so much. The Lincoln Continental is often considered to be more of an old man's car, like he's worked his whole life, he's retired, so he'll buy a Continental. It's a nice, quiet, luxury car, which will just waft you around in luxury. That's what it's designed for, of course, but even back then, it was designed to be more affordable than something like a Cadillac, or I believe the Chrysler Imperial as well. I think this was cheaper than that also. And of course we don't have that car in the game, But as far as performance goes, the top end speed is never earth-shattering. You can get it above 200, but you have to very heavily modify it. And in terms of racing use, neither this or the Cadillac are hugely competitive, but if you're going to use one of the two, this is probably the one that I would recommend. If memory serves, I think this one is a little bit lighter, because of course we already reviewed the Cadillac, and in terms of power, they're fairly similar. You can do more to the Cadillac, I think. I haven't tuned either of them in quite a while, but I seem to recall you can get more power out of the Cadillac, something like 950 horsepower. I think this car was somewhere in the region of 830, 840, something like that. But still, not exactly lacking, a huge amount of torque as well, and they both have just effortless, like, gangster cruiser appeal. That's of course what most people have them for, lowrider style, and they can both pull that off very well. For me personally, although the Cadillac is my real world dream car out of the two, in the game I must admit I enjoy driving the Lincoln a lot more, because it just feels so much better through corners. It manages to be basically the same size as the Cadillac, especially in terms of length, but it feels more nimble. It feels a lot narrower as well, which is ironic because it's not really a narrow car, it's a very big one. So if you do get the chance to use it, 55 grand isn't that much. Don't buy it expecting to win every race you enter, of course, but if you do use it, you can have a lot of fun with it, especially if, like me, you're into this kind of car. It makes a great cruiser, a great drifter. You can go backwards in it very quick if that helps. And, of course, it can go fast if you tune it correctly. Plus, one of the main advantages of being a longer car, in a similar way to the Cadillac, is that when you fully tune it with huge power, it actually doesn't fishtail and drift anywhere near as much as a muscle car would, and that's partially due to the super long wheelbase, which helps to ground the car a lot more. It's not as nimble, of course, that's the payoff, but still, it has its advantages. So, certainly worth a look. One of my favourite cars, as I said, probably top 5 actually in the game, and that's it for this pick. So I'll see you guys next time, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.